Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. Love doing these. I'm glad to squeeze a few more in. Then we're going to take a little bit of a break. But don't worry, these episodes are shared every Tuesday and Thursday as an audio podcast. Go to bizwithpublishinghub.com to check them out. And thanks for tuning in to this live stream. Here, without any further delay, is the introduction. Publishing a book isn't just about selling copies, it's about opening doors. The moment your book hits the world, it becomes a beacon, drawing opportunities you might never have considered. Many authors find that beyond book sales, their work leads to speaking engagements, networking breakthroughs, consulting roles, and other unexpected ways to grow their influence. Your book can position you as an expert, a thought leader, and a sought after voice in your industry, all while building meaningful connections with those you can impact most. But you need to be ready to seize these opportunities. It's why I work with authors to develop strategies for maximizing the impact of their books, so every opportunity is met with intention and purpose. If you want to talk more about how your book can open doors, you can visit robbiesamuels.com/book launch support to schedule a free 30-minute book launch brainstorming session. And now, before today's exciting panel discussion, let's hear a quick word from our sponsor. So with me today are authors whose books have taken them to unexpected heights. Let's hear their stories. Carol Enneking wrote The Rebalancing Act, Wisdom from Working Women for Success That Matters. This book explores the challenges working women face in trying to, quote, have it all, offering insights and strategies based on interviews with over 70 women to help restore balance, health, and fulfillment in both personal and professional life. Gary Ware is the author of Playful Rebellion, Maximize Workplace Success Through the Power of Play. He offers a refreshing approach to work and life by teaching readers how to reignite their playful spirit, boost creativity, and improve productivity through play while creating deeper connections and joy in everyday situations. And John Thompson, also known as JT, wrote Stack Your Deck, How to Be an Ace in Business and Life. He provides a powerful blueprint for achieving success by cultivating the right mindset, building meaningful connections, embracing empowerment, and overcoming life's challenges to create a purposeful, fulfilling life. You know what I love about this, folks? All three of you are really on the same page, and you're here mostly because of your time availability. So I have a feeling you're going to have a lot to say about each other's books. But Carol, let's come over to you. I want to hear a little more about the audience that you had in mind for the book that you wrote.
The initial audience is working women and women trying to fulfill a variety of roles. I can definitely identify with that, having spent 3 decades doing so myself. But it's also for the people who support them and love them. And so some of the biggest supporters of my book have been men who have found it enlightening to help them find ways to support the women in their lives. And the audience is really anyone who's seeking fulfillment and really having trouble what it even means, because to have it all or to have fulfillment, you have to know what you're really aiming for. And I, spoiler alert, the answer is not trying to do everything and make no choices. You still have to make some tough choices to really go for what's important.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. And I love the idea of the men in these working women's lives finding the book useful for themselves. I was an at-home dad, or I would call myself a work-at-home dad when my kids were under 3. I had 2 under the age of 3, and I was a primary caregiver. And that, boy, a lesson in humility and learning about the juggling act. You get to become a much stronger partner when you're having that role. So that's really cool. Gary, I'm going to come over to you. I'd love to hear a little bit more about who you had in mind when you were writing this book. Who's the audience?
Yeah, my book was designed for working professionals, specifically those that are at the point in their career where they, on paper, should be having it all, but yet they feel burnt out. They don't feel fulfilled, and they're realizing that they locked that inner child up and threw away the key.
Ooh, that doesn't sound good. I like goosebumps the way you described it, honestly. We'll have to hear more about how you're helping people unlock that door and get out of that cage. But JT, let me come over to you. John Thompson III. Who did you have in mind for your book?
You know, it's interesting. When I think about the book, there's this thought of, hey, write the book that you need to read. And so I think as I was writing the book, I started getting more involved and more excited about actually reading the book. And so I would say, when I think about it, it's for the early career professional looking to make their mark in the world. And then it's also for individuals that are maybe they're tenured leaders in corporate. They've been in business for 20 plus years and they're looking to gain more meaning out of life. So I run a financial planning practice today, and in the past I've had 20 plus years of corporate experience. And so I fondly remember those times early in my career when I was looking to really make a mark in the world. But then later in life, what I recognized was it was really more about meaning and how I can bring more meaning into my life. And so those are some of the stories that I share in the book. And I always believe it's not about the cards you're dealt, it's about how we play our hand. And so that's what we talk about in Stack Your Deck.
Awesome. Is there anyone here who's not a first-time author, like they had multiple books under their belt? Are you all first-time authors? Oh, that's so cool. Okay, here's why that's great. And JT, I'm going to stay with you for a moment. I want to take you back to when you first started writing this book. And I'm going to ask all of you this question. So start thinking about your own answer. Before you know what you know now, because clearly there's a huge learning curve. But when you first start writing the book and thinking about the book's impact, the book's success, what metrics you're going to be looking for to make sure it's on that path to success, what did you initially think was important for the book to be a success? What were you keeping track of?
Sales, right? How many individuals are purchasing the book? And really just, I initially thought about it as traction. And I think, I came from a background, I've had 20 plus years in sales. And so it's very natural to think about it from how many units are you moving, how many books you're selling. So I thought about it from that perspective. And then I believe it's kind of evolved and really just evolved from the standpoint of then moving on to how many individuals am I serving and how do I serve one individual at a time, and recognizing that the units will come as you continue to make impact one-on-one.
Yeah, I think for so many first-time authors, just getting the book published is really the first and most important metric, because they are like, can't think beyond that. And then usually they're originally focused on sales. I've heard that before as well from lots of folks. But as you said, that's evolving for you to be less about the individual units, but the impact you're having with the people who are called to your book. I'm going to come back over to Carol with the same question. Before you start writing a book, or even in the midst of writing one, we don't really fully understand the power of the book yet until we actually become the author. So what were you thinking back then, and how did that evolve over time?
Well, it's sort of funny because my corporate experience was all in people development, talent management. And so I knew a little about a lot of things. I had facilitated a lot of training, but I started writing a book because I wanted to hone my message, and I knew I wanted to focus on public speaking. And so it's funny because I don't know that I had many expectations for the book, other than I thought it would help me hone my message and figure out how to focus my speaking career. But what's been so interesting as it's come along is that now the book has really informed and become the speaking career. But what I really judge success on is kind of like JT was just saying, is it's how many lives are impacted. The stories that people tell me when they've read the book, the ways in which they find meaning from reading the book, that's what keeps me going and makes me want to keep on reaching more people. And I believe the sales, they've been great for introductory sales, but I think there's more out there, and I think the book has some staying power. So I'm hoping that the sales will continue to flow, but also I'll be able to get out there with the message and impact lives in a positive way.
A moment ago, Carol, you were talking about the book was helping you sort of shape your message. I think it's actually probably not fully appreciated sometimes by people who are starting the process of writing a book, how much writing a book will help you create frameworks or processes or structure or models or whatever words you choose to talk about the way we communicate our ideas. I remember working on a book where, I had a process, but it wasn't as refined. And writing the book and workshopping the content with potential readers is what helped me really refine the process. I also know authors who have named their framework only after the process of writing a book. So that plus the speaking thing, we'll come back to that in a few minutes to talk about how speaking and books go hand in hand. I know Gary can add a lot to that, because Gary and I know each other through the National Speakers Association. So Gary, tell us a little bit about, the origin of Gary, the author. I feel like NSA influenced me as like you must have a book if you're a speaker. And that was the first reason I was writing a book, but it evolved. For you, what was that initial mindset around writing a book?
Yeah, for me, I got that message too of, hey, guess what? You can book more gigs. You can charge more if you're a published author. And matter of fact, a number of speaking events, that was like the first question that they would ask. Hey, do you have a book? So that had always been there. But for this book specifically, the reason why I set out to write it was I'm also a workshop facilitator. And so I had created the course that the book is modeled off of, and it was a video course. And so many folks were asking for additional resources and wanting a way to take the course with them after the course was done. And after enough folks said that, I said, all right, I think I have something here. At first, it was just going to be like a companion manual. But then after I started outlining what I wanted to say and starting to put my stories, I was realizing that, wow, this actually can be something. And so that was the initial inspiration that got me to go forth.
I love this idea that you already had established content that was resonating, that was working for people. They wanted more of it. They wanted an easier way to take the ideas with them. Boy, what a difference that is from people who write a book because they feel called to write a book, but they don't test the ideas with anybody. They don't have any market built up around it, no audience waiting. And then they're kind of sad about the results. You had people like clamoring, like, when is this going to happen? And you knew that professionally speaking, there would also be an a sort of uplift for your business as a speaker because you have a book. So it makes you a little bit more marketable. I love the approach is much more strategic, I would say, than what a lot of folks end up doing. And when you're thinking now about success, Gary, is it about like the book closing deals for you? Is it people buying your book in bulk? Like, is it reviews? Like, what do you think of now as you're continuing? The book's been out for a little while. So like, what's the ongoing metrics that you're paying attention to?
Yes. Just like what Carol and JT said, it is the impact. What I love so much is getting off a stage and meeting someone who's gone through the book and they tell me how much has impacted their lives. A quick story, I was speaking at a community college and it was for their staff. It wasn't even for the students. And it was for their beginning of the year. And then I had someone write me a note, and I still have this note. I can barely see it because I have a wall of gratitude in front of me, and it's all the things that I've gotten on the road and stuff like that. Just especially when I'm having a rough day, I look up and I'm like, all right, I'm making an impact. But they left me a little sticky, letting me know how much it's impacted their life and how they see the world. And those are the things that matters most. And yes, we can measure it by how many units sold, like when you speak at an event and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, when it's all said and done and you're on your deathbed, I'm not going to be talking about, back when I sold 5,000 copies of my books. I'm not going to be saying that. I'm going to be thinking about the lives that I've impacted and how I've been as a human. That's what's really going to matter.
For all those listening who consume content, which is all of us, I just want you to hear how you can have an impact on the author or podcast host or content creator or course creator, whatever it is, whatever people are putting out there to try to better your life, you taking a moment even to write a little note, a sticky, and then share it that way, it makes a big difference. It's a great segue actually to reviews, which is my happy place. But I think for a lot of people, this is an area they struggle. And JT, I'm going to actually come over to you because of the three of you, you have done really well. And I want to talk a little bit about your approach and how you thought about this. So for those listening, there are ratings, which are the stars 1 through 5, and there are written reviews. So the ratings show up at the top of the Amazon page, but you don't have to buy a book to rate it, and you don't have to write anything. So it's much easier to get ratings than to get written reviews. And I have seen some books that have well over 100 ratings and less than 10 reviews. And I'm always like, what was that about? So I look at a couple of things when I wonder about how well a book is doing. One is I look at the total number of reviews, and I also look at the ratio between ratings and reviews. And I also look to see how recently they've been getting reviews, so that, the book's been out a little while. So JT, you've got 46 ratings and 43 reviews. So 1, kudos. 2, kudos. You have a high ratio, 46 to 43. 43 written reviews. Anything over 20 means you've made an effort. Anything near 50 or over 50 means you had a real plan in place. All of my books have over 200 Amazon reviews. So like, I know from what I speak, it is not easy to do. And you have a review as of November. You've got a bunch of reviews that just came in. When did your book come out? How recently?
It came out in January of 23, and then the audiobook came out in February of this year.
Well, how cool that you have several reviews that happen in the last few months. So that's really, really neat to see, including one today. So go check that out. So congratulations on that. Tell me a little bit about how you thought of reviews. Why did you think they were important? And how did you weave them into a launch? And how are you continuing to get reviews published on Amazon?
Yeah, so I love each of the reviews. So thank you to everyone who has submitted a review. I think, it's important to, any product that you use, that you leverage, that you enjoy, I would encourage you to put a review. I think that's how we as authors kind of know where, if we're hitting the mark, and as readers know, it kind of defines and directs us to what work we like, what we enjoy. It's been an intentional process. I've reached out to individuals one-to-one, and if you enjoyed the book, please leave a review. And I've provided direction from that standpoint, feedback to those individuals who have provided a review. The review that I got this morning from Phil, his name's Phil Egbeko, and he picked up a copy of the book, and he has a program where he does touring through to the country of Ghana through his company called Hilltop Global. And so he does these educational experiences. And so we were talking about maybe incorporating my book as part of the curriculum that he's working with. And so it's really great to see that the book hit the mark with him. But it's really just taking a one-to-one approach with individuals if they have experienced, positive, impact, or if they don't enjoy the book. I encourage individuals to, make sure that you're letting individuals know that as well. So I just think it's, I don't know that it's necessarily rocket science as much as it is just reaching out and encouraging individuals to leave their reviews. And so I think a lot of times individuals may overthink the reviews, and so that may be holding folks back from leaving a review. But, a one-sentence review can be just as powerful as a paragraph of what, like Phil wrote this morning. And so I think the key is just making sure that you're letting individuals know what you appreciated about their work, because that helps guide us as authors in terms of knowing where our work hits the mark and how do we make sure that we're shining the light on that for future readers.
Appreciate that. And I'm going to share a few tips about this, but first I want to hear Gary's thoughts on this, because Gary, you've also been making an effort. And I know I've been in your ear about this for a while. Yes. We've been talking about it. So you've got 31 ratings and 20 reviews. You hit the 20 review mark. That is like, to me, the minimum goal to get to show that you made an effort. You had reviews that came in over the summer that helped you with that. This is really cool. So tell me how you were approaching it, what has changed, and why are the reviews important to you?
Yes. That is, Robert, you hit the nail right on the head of things that authors overlook, is reviews. Because we think, oh, duh, it should be a no-brainer. You like the book, leave the review. But you're right, folks overthink it. It's like, what do I say? And so to help folks and nudge folks in the right direction is essential. And so one of the things that I do is anytime it was a little bit challenging. I'm getting better at this. Anytime someone shoots me an email or something like that, telling me that they like the book, I immediately in that moment, ask, hey, if you don't mind, would you, please leave me a review, and put this will, help other people as they're choosing. So that's one thing that I've definitely been doing. And one thing that I saw recently that I thought was so creative and fun was as an author, and he has a book, and he was looking at his reviews, and he noticed that there was a inflatable Danny DeVito, or it was a cutout of Danny DeVito, whatever, that had more reviews than his book, and he was encouraging his followers to review his book, because he was like, no way can Danny DeVito stand-up cutout have more reviews than me, and it rallied some folks behind, to leave a review of the book.
That is very fun and creative, and I love, Gary, that you're bringing this forth, because you're all about fun and play. But this could be very drudgery, or you can be playful and have fun with it and kind of make it a positive experience. So a couple of things I'm going to pull from both of what you said, and then, Carol, I'll ask you in a moment about either this or anything else that's been challenging about writing a book, because reviews is just one piece of it. But I do think people overlook this. And the reason I focus on reviews is that there's social proof on the book sales page, and they are permanently on the book sales page. So the whole #1 bestseller, #1 new release stuff, those orange ribbons are fleeting, sometimes as little as an hour, and they're gone. And then you're like, I don't know, you're somewhere like in the millions on Kindle. And it's like from #1 to obscurity. This is a very strange thing to celebrate. So I think reviews are really helpful in a lot of what JT was saying. If people write a review that guides future prospective readers, whether or not it's a good book. So I always use my wife as an example. She's an avid reader, audiobooks mostly, 280 a year, mostly, not exclusively, but a lot of romance. So if she finds a book that someone writes, 1 star, too much smut, she's like, ooh, what's the book? What's this book? So one person's yuck is someone else's yum. So even if they don't like the book, it could still bring business in. Like if the 1 star is about how poorly edited it was, you should probably get the book fixed and like redo it. But if it's content, not everyone's gonna like content. I have got reviews on my books about how woke my content is, because I care about people and the way I talk about them. So that's okay. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but it'll also attract the right people. So here are 4 prompts that you can use to help people write good reviews. And you can share this with them when asking them, and remind them they don't have to read the whole book. 1 or 2 sentences is all that's needed. This is not a book report like 4th grade. I feel like we all have flashbacks to that 4th grade book report. So first is what's like a takeaway or a lesson learned by the book? What is something you'll do differently because of this book? A quote or a line that resonated with you from the book? And lastly, who would benefit from reading this book? Who's the ideal person to read it and really get a lot of value out of it? Just 2 or 3 sentences answering 2 prompts, and you'll write you literally can just copy a quote and say who should read the book, and that would be a decent review. More than 90% of us buyers reference reviews before making a purchase, and way less than 10% routinely write reviews. So a very tiny percentage of people have an outsized influence on what we're all buying. So inviting your community to help be part of that influence is part of it as well. Carol, coming over to you, any thoughts you have about this, or what else has been challenging about the process of getting content out of your head and into a format that people can enjoy?
Yeah, well, first of all, I might have to find that Danny DeVito stand-up, whatever it is. I love that idea, getting creative. My book's only been out since September, and I do have a goal by the end of the year to have 50 reviews, and I have a long way to go. And I've noticed that when I ask people, it tends to work better, but sometimes you have to remind them more than once, because they'll say they'll do it and then they get busy. So I love your prompts. I think that's very, very helpful for people. In terms of what's challenging, I had the good fortune of my best childhood friend has written now 17 books, and she helped me with this. And I laugh and say, if it were up to me alone, I'd probably still be on chapter 1. But I think it can be challenging to just look at a blank page and start writing, and start to make it cohesive and make it make sense. So I think first of all, I think getting the words out and getting them on paper is the first thing. And then you can organize it. But having someone who can kind of help be that second voice and help you make sense of the content and look for themes is very helpful. We interviewed over 70 people for the book. And so we had a lot of information that we wanted to combine and look for themes. And so I enlisted her help to do that. And that was a wonderful benefit that solved probably the biggest challenge for me. And so, yeah, that's probably the biggest thing I learned.
Our data research is so, I think it's so powerful because it's so hard to do. A lot of people don't do it. So you can really separate yourself out from a lot of the folks by doing that original research and being willing to figure out how to bring the data to life in a story that people will find meaningful and memorable. And it takes a lot of work. Even without that added challenge, having a developmental editor or a really great writing coach is really key for a lot of folks who got great ideas, but they got to figure out how to say it in a way that will be meaningful to the people who will be reading it. I am not a developmental editor or a writing coach, but I often meet with people who are just thinking about writing a book because I'm a strategist, and I'll ask a question that I don't think of as a gotcha question, but half the people I talk to don't know the answer. And the question is, how does this book fit in with your overall business strategy? If like a reader gets super excited about the book, how do they find you and then start buying things from you? And a lot of people end up going, Carol, how do you approach that part of the piece of the puzzle?
Of how people buy, how they find me. I try to make it very easy and have everything pointing to my name and my website, although people don't know how to spell my name. But I also have bookmarks, business cards. I try to have socials out there. And I am laughing because I just thought of another challenge, as silly as it sounds, having 70 people that you interview and then trying to change the names to protect the innocent. To protect the stories. I had to come up with more names. We were asking children, hey, who do you know that has the name that begins with a B that we could use? And just coming up with random names here, there, and everywhere. And then having a list of all the pseudonyms so we could keep track of the original data versus.
You needed a key. You needed a key to figure out who was who. Who's Beatrice?
We did, exactly. Because everyone, when they started reading it, their first question was, who am I? What's my assumed name? And I would tell them and they'd say, oh, I thought she said something really important.
This is so great. I love it. So, John, JT, what was the sort of challenging piece for you, aside from the review process, which you've nailed pretty well? Was it getting ideas out of your head? Was the whole publishing piece? Was it marketing? Like, where did you feel like you needed to get support, and what kind of support did you look for?
I think just getting the process started and staying on track. So, I'm what they call a deadline writer. So very good at writing, kind of waiting till the last minute and writing when something is due. And that pressure then, causes you miraculously to have the creativity needed to get the submission in. But, you put undue stress on yourself when you do that. And so I think what I realized was that it was important to really pace myself. And so I think that the challenge was just, not necessarily waiting till the end to make the submissions. And what I ended up doing was scheduling time to write and making sure that I was just committed to writing on, Tuesday evening, Wednesday evening, Friday evening, Saturday morning. That was what worked for my schedule because I was working full time while I was writing as well. And so I needed to be structured in my schedule so that I could make sure that I was getting the right amount of energy to the book as well as my daily duties.
I can't remember which famous author. I feel like it's like maybe a Stephen King quote, but maybe not. It's like, when are you motivated to write? And it was like 9 a.m. every Monday through Friday. Like not that they were actually, but like that's their commitment to just do the thing. And I think figuring out the writing piece, which can feel really solitary. So I've also since learned the idea of co-writing. I don't mean working in the same book, but like co-working and then both working on some piece of content. It's really nice. Gary, coming over to you, I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I'm curious about marketing strategies, and in particular about how to get a bunch of books out into the world. Now, I don't really focus ordinarily on a lot of individual book sales beyond the launch when I'm focusing on reviews, but whether you're giving books away because you're trying to reach people, selling the books, bulk sales, joining cross promotions or other things, like what's been an effective way for you to move a lot of books out into the world?
If you're trying to do volume, the best way is being a public speaker, because then you can include it in your offering. I know for me, I learned this actually from a mentor / friend of mine. Her name is Vanessa Van Edwards. She has a number of best-selling books, and she had mentioned, especially working with like nonprofits and having events that want you to come out, and they don't necessarily have the budgets that other organizations do. And she says, well, you know what, how about you buy a book for each attendee, through me and put it in their, in their swag bag. And a lot of times that plus covering, travel is enough. And I've instituted that so many times, and I've had so many people take me up on it. Matter of fact, just this year, I've spoken at over 5 events that have purchased 500 books each. So, when you add that up, that's a decent number of books.
It's a decent number of books for sure.
Yeah. And money back into the pocket. For me, I self-published my book. So, I can get it at a discount. And even me giving it to them at a discount, I still make some money on that.
Yeah. So I have, my first book was a book about networking at conferences. And it's the only book that I really did an in-person, like a ton of in-person speaking around it. And then the pandemic came and my other 2 books came out. And I would include anywhere from 25 to 50 books in the contract if they paid sort of my top rate at the time. And then I would offer them a 25% discount for 50 or more books beyond that 25 or 50. And it often led to like 200 books being purchased, which was awesome. Because if you only gave them 3 books, they would just be like, well, we'll just give these away as part of the Q&A. But when you give them 50 or 25, they're like, oh, I think everyone should have one now. And I know Lois Kramer has got this great, she's a great NSA contact. And she talks about like, wouldn't it be great if people could walk away with your with the knowledge that I'm going to share? I keep forgetting her exact phrase, but it's so smart. By the way, I helped her with her new book launch. She just launched the 2nd edition of her book, Book More Business. And at last count, she's at 131 ratings and 131 reviews, which is amazing. Awesome. So good job. But she likes to talk about like bringing the book in, and this idea that the book wouldn't be available for sale if you didn't write it. Like they'll have a whole different budget for it, which is so cool. I think when you're first writing a book, that's the kind of thing you can't imagine leveraging, and then it becomes routine. Good job on moving 500 books 5 times. That's phenomenal.
2,500 bucks. Yeah.
That's 2,500 books. And my first book is $3.50 if I buy blocks of 100, including shipping, and then I would sell it for $15, which is 25% off the retail. That's good. That's good money. That's like, I'm okay with $11.50 in my pocket for each book sold, which is something you're not going to get from the publisher. Does anyone else have a good story about things they did to help move some books, or why they might join like a cross promotion? I mean, we all get to know each other through the Kindle cross promotion around Black Friday. John, what made you decide to sign up? Because you and I didn't know each other prior to all this. What attracted you to the idea of being part of a Kindle cross promotion?
Yeah, so look, I'm as you can see in my office here. For those that are on video, I've got I'm an avid reader, and so when I saw the campaign that you did last year, I picked up a couple of books from the campaign, and a good friend of mine, John Saunders, got a great book called The Optimizer. He was the one that pointed me to you, Robbie, when I saw that he was a part of the program last year. And so this was one of those ones that I knew I would love to be a part of it if it opened up again. And so, here we are. And, with respect to kind of creative ways to get the book out there, one of the things that I did early on, you talk about a pre-sale campaign. So a launch that I did during the pre-sale, which helped fund the cost of my book. And what I did there, it was one of those things where I knew that it was going to be outside of my comfort zone, because at the time I wasn't very active on social media, and it really forced me to get tight on the message around the book and then really build an audience. And it came out, the pre-sale campaign was a few months before the book actually came out. And some data, the average book sells, in the lifetime of the book, sells about 250 copies. That's in the lifetime. So Gary makes it sound easy with 500 books at a time, 5 different conferences, but the average book sells 250 books in its lifetime. And so during the 30-day pre-sale campaign, my book was able to sell over 300 units. And so that was really something that helped with just building an audience. And then those individuals were a part of a big launch event that I did in person. Then they were able to help spread the magic of the book. Many of those individuals had me speak at their corporations and help book me in coaching sessions. And so it was just a really great way, I felt, get the message out, and then force me to really get tight on the messaging and who the book is for. So I would highly encourage individuals to do a pre-sale campaign.
I love this. So different routes for different people. I actually do something a little different, but along the same strategy, which is I build a launch team for myself or with my clients of likely prospects and referral partners. So I put a lot of time and effort into making sure they're getting the right kinds of people on their launch team. And then we give them the advanced review copy, and we give them prompts, and we give them a deadline of a couple of weeks to get the review in via a Google form. And in that time frame, sometimes there's a private training or a private workshop or a private conversation with the launch team members and the author, which is a nice way to kind of get their attention and also seed the idea that they are a speaker and make them more referable. Then the book comes out, and then we return, here's your review with all the steps for buying the Kindle book at 99 cents. So it's a verified review. And I'm in the process right now of 2 authors that are collecting reviews as we speak. And it's really cool to keep refreshing and seeing the review count go up. But if you do that either way, whether you're describing or I'm describing, what you're really talking about is building a pipeline between the book and the people who might be interested in the book and everything else you're doing. And so for me, the virtual book launch that I design and MC for my clients is a little bit about the success of the book, but it's really forward focusing the attention of what else the author could do, bringing in guest speakers to talk about what it's like to work with them. So if you do all of this, then you get the kind of outcome that Gary's talking about, because you really start lining things up and you end up with a lot of business off the book, not so much the sales of the book, but the business that comes from all of that. And I'd love that you, JT, brought this up about how many books sell in a lifetime. It's like 100 a year. 100 in the first year is average. So many people are actually less than that. And 5,000 books in a lifetime would be phenomenal. So a lot of people come into this thinking they're going to sell tens of thousands of books. And it's just like, that's just not the reality unless you already have that audience, in which case we're talking about a totally different ballgame. So Carol, I'm going to come over to you. We're talking about building a pipeline between the book and your other offers. When you were building this book and thinking about, because you had like all those interviews you were doing, you have a service that you offer. In the book, like what did you leave behind for people as far as whether it's bonus content or opt-ins or your contact info or talking about your offer? Like what's in the book and how does the book sort of weave its way back into your ecosystem as a business?
Yeah. So I was launching my book and my brand all at the same time. And the takeaway at the very end of the book, we asked people to join the community. And so they could join my community, and the free resource that I give them is a legacy blueprint workbook. And so it's an opportunity for them to look at lifetime goals, what they want their legacy to be, and then work backwards from that to some goals that they want to work on now. And it just helps them keep that bigger picture in mind as they go about their day. So they're not so consumed by the day's activities that they're not thinking about the bigger purpose that they're seeking to achieve. So that's the initial leave behind. But a very interesting thing has happened since I launched the book. And I did do a big launch. I did not do a pre-sale, but I had the 99 cent ebook launch day, and I was fortunate to align with Houston Energy and Climate Week. I was able to get to an oil company I guess they call themselves energy companies these days, but oil and gas. I'm in Houston, so that's a big thing. Anyway, I had about 100 people there, and we asked them right then to go buy a 99-cent book. But a funny thing happened. They all started buying paperbacks, and a few even bought hardcovers, and I had over 500 books sold before I knew it, which I didn't know was a big deal until this conversation. But and so most of them were not the 99-cent ebooks, but that was such a driver. But the other thing that's happened that has been so cool is that people, when we gather in smaller groups, I've had friends host book parties in their house and just gatherings for us to talk about rebalancing. And people start sharing, and then they say things at the end like, I wish we had a way to continue this. I wish we had a way to build a group and keep each other accountable. So now I am developing a mastermind group and the technology that goes with that. And that's going to be a major part of my outreach, is just connecting women together so they can have that support system as they embark on their own rebalancing act. So some of it's driving them to the website, and then other things are driving them to hopefully think about joining a group. So it's, stay tuned. It's evolving as we speak, but that's kind of where it's headed.
Here's the part that I really like about what you just shared, is that you're listening to people who have read your book and are interacting with your book, and you're listening to what they're wanting, and you're creating based off that, which is different than what a lot of experts do. And I call this expert syndrome. They see someone, they're like, oh, I know what you need. And then they go and they tinker and so they create it, and then they're like, here you go. And the person's like, what? And so there's a difference between the problem people have that they are willing to admit having, and the problem that they have, which is the actual block that's stopping them from making whatever progress or life fulfillment that you're hoping they can have, but they don't know about that block yet. And so part of our job, and this is what books can do, is to help people become aware of the bigger issue, and then also your solution and you as a guide. And so you creating these resources after in response to their conversation with you is a great way to build community around the book. And it also means the book becomes evergreen in a different way. It becomes really part of a course or a program or community, and not just a one-off thing. So I love that. And I think that's another way to move a lot of books, is to tie it to a program so it leads people kind of directly in. One thing I would say is if you have like hey, here's a page of bonus content, put it at the front and the back of your book, because there's a tiny percentage of people who get to the back of the book overall. More people are going to see the beginning. Just is. So I have a read this first page at the beginning of the book, usually right after the table of contents. And then at the very back, I have a read this page, which is the same information. I usually get a graphic of the book in different formats, and I talk about the bonus content that they'll get, and I give them a simple link to go to or a QR code to go to. So that's really cool to see that you're thinking about that. Does anyone else have a thoughtful process they've used or a success story? Because I always think about how books really open doors. I mean, Gary's offered some success here. JT, anything happen, because I'm an author, blank is now possible? Like, is there something that comes to mind?
I'll say, look, anything is possible. And I say that because it really is one of those things that it's always been a dream of mine to write a book. And it's not easy. And it's definitely ups and downs, but getting something accomplished that you really dream of doing. And, one of my favorite stories. So my favorite author is Robin Sharma. So he is the author of the book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, 5 a.m. Club, and a number of different books. And he, he's got a new great book. It's called The Wealth That Money Can't Buy. And he was someone that when I write about in the introductory chapter of my book, one of his talks actually inspired me to write my book. And so I was going to get early praise quotes for the book, and a fellow, you guys mentioned you're part of National Speakers Association. So Dr. Willie Jolly, he won the Cavett Award last year. He's someone that provided early praise to me. And when he read the book, he noticed that I called out Robin Sharma, what turns out that he had Robin Sharma on his SiriusXM podcast. And so Dr. Willie connected me with Robin, and Robin actually provided the early praise quote that's on the front of my book. And so he says, an insightful journey on how to define and pursue success on your own terms and live your best life. And so to me, that was just such a full circle moment. And actually a real full circle moment was Robin came to DC a few weeks ago on tour with his book, The Wealth That Money Can't Buy. And I got a chance to present Robin with my own signed copy of my book that he endorsed. And so that was just an awesome moment, but it just really talked to me about the importance of just keep planting those seeds, and you never know where those seeds are going to harvest in the future. So because of this book, I truly believe anything is possible.
That's amazing. All right. Wow. I have some goosebumps here, JT. In a moment, I'm going to come to Carol and I'm going to ask her for advice that she'd give someone who's writing a book to help them grow their business as a speaker, coach, and or consultant type thing. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. All right, Carol, lay it on us. What kind of advice do you have for these authors?
Well, at the risk of borrowing from Nike, I would say just do it. So I, like many of you, was involved with National Speakers Association because I had my own company for about 18 years before. And one of my mentors in that group said, you have a book in there somewhere. I also had two very active children, was wearing a lot of hats, which is sort of what inspired my book, but I didn't think it was the right time. And so I parked that idea for about 15 years. And fast forward, a lot of life changes for me, some challenges along the way, health challenges, things like that. Kids are grown. And I'm back into one of those cushy corporate jobs with a wonderful regular paycheck and just a lot of meetings, nothing to complain about, but it was a different type of life. And I think when I decided to leave that job, I had one foot still in the corporate world and one foot in the book world. And it's so risky to feel like, okay, I'm going to give up the safety of the regular paycheck and the somewhat job security and benefits and things like that. But oh, how rich and rewarding it is to just let your life unfold the way it was meant to. And so if you have that dream, if you are thinking about it, just get started, because once you do, it is amazing how things happen, like JT just talked about, and just connections that you never would have anticipated. And if you're open to the ideas, if you are not so set in your path that you cannot take advice and veer to a different direction, you might just shock yourself and those around you with the amazing life that can open up for you.
Yeah. Wow. That's powerful. And yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've transformed your life in quite a brilliant way. Gary, if I can have a quick lesson or words of wisdom you would give to somebody who's getting started in this process?
You sort of hit on it. And this is just all about the writing process. How can you write in a way that works for you? And that might mean that you get, you do co-working. For me, what I ended up doing, something that I read in the book Big Magic by Liz Gilbert. And this is how Brene Brown wrote her book, was Brene Brown would get some folks together. She would tell stories. She's a natural storyteller. They would take notes, and then she would go and write it. Me and my editor, we had a weekly, and this was during the pandemic, so we had a weekly Zoom chat. And on that Zoom chat, I would tell stories, and I would talk through parts of the books, and we would get that transcribed. And that became a good piece of the draft content that I would just take back and comb through. So that, again, if you have a story in you, there's a way to get it out.
That's awesome. And Gary, where can people find you and follow your work?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Gary Ware, or you can go to my website, breakthroughplay.com, and there's a section for my book, Playful Rebellion.
Fantastic. By the way, we're going to put all the links in the show notes at bizbookpublishinghub.com, including social links, book links, websites, etc. JT Limerick bring you back on here? How can people find you and follow your work?
Yeah, look, I mean, I would say, Robbie, thanks for the time here. And, you know, my message to folks would be, the world needs your unique gifts. So don't leave here with them still inside you. Create your legacy today. And so bring your work into the world. The ideas that are in your head, they're not for you. They're for others. They're for the world. So share your gifts with the world, shine your light upon the world. And when you do that, you allow others and give them permission to do the same. So you can find the book, stackyourdeckbook.com, and I am on social at acejohnthompson.com or at acejohnthompson. So would love to connect. And look, I believe that success leaves clues. So any one of us would be happy. I'm speaking for the others here, but I know they would be happy to connect with others along the journey. So if you have an idea and if we can be of a resource or a value, please don't hesitate to reach out. So thanks, Robbie.
That's really great. And I'm so happy that you're all willing to share your journeys, because I really do. That whole success breeds clues is true. Carol, how about you? How can people find you and follow your work?
Easiest way is at carolenneking.com. I'm going to spell that out if you don't mind, because it's a little tricky. It's ENNEKING.com. And then I'm also on all the socials with basically my name, Carol Enneking.
Fantastic. Hey, folks, if you go to bizbookpublishinghub.com, you're going to find all these show notes and links, plus all the other episodes that come out every Tuesday and Thursday, and more than 50 experts who guide entrepreneurs through the process of writing, editing, publishing, and marketing their business book to help you become a successful author. We also have invitations to free virtual networking events for writers and authors throughout the year. And you can check out the Kindle cross-promotion campaigns that I run. Maybe it'll be just in time to buy books or sign up to be part of it or join the waitlist for a future one. But all that information is at bizbookpublishinghub.com. And now I just want to say thank you very much to our panelists. Thanks for being here, friends.
Thank you.